Can the Indian Navy contain China in the Indian Ocean? At first glance, the answer appears obvious. China today possesses the world's largest navy by ship numbers. Its shipyards launch warships at a pace unmatched by any other nation. Its naval presence stretches from the western Pacific to the shores of Africa. Beijing speaks openly about becoming a global maritime power. To many observers, China's rise at sea seems unstoppable. Yet strategy is rarely determined by numbers alone. There is a fundamental difference between being a powerful navy and being a dominant navy in a particular region. Geography, logistics, alliances, and strategic positioning often matter as much as the size of a fleet. And nowhere is this more evident than in the Indian Ocean. China may be a formidable naval power, but the Indian Ocean is not the South China Sea. It is not China's maritime backyard. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Strategic Vanguard. You can also follow us across platforms. We're on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, so you never miss our strategic insights. Prefer audio? Tune in on Spotify and Amazon Music, and take Strategic Vanguard with you wherever you go. For deeper, structured analysis, visit strategicvanguard.com/analysis and stay updated with our latest news and views at strategicvanguard.com. Strategic thinking begins with informed perspectives. Stay with Strategic Vanguard. It is a region where geography naturally favors India and where Beijing faces challenges that cannot be solved simply by building more ships. The question, therefore, is not whether China can enter the Indian Ocean. Chinese warships are already there. Chinese submarines have operated there. Chinese intelligence vessels regularly monitor activities across the region. The real question is whether China can establish lasting maritime dominance in the Indian Ocean, or whether India possesses the strategic tools necessary to contain its growing influence. To understand this contest, we must first understand why the Indian Ocean matters so much. The Indian Ocean is one of the most strategically important bodies of water on the planet. It connects the energy-rich Middle East, the rapidly growing economies of Asia, and the resource-rich regions of Africa. Some of the world's busiest shipping routes pass through these waters. Global commerce, energy flows, and maritime trade all depend heavily on the stability of this region. For China, the Indian Ocean is not merely important. It is essential. A significant portion of China's imported energy travels through the Indian Ocean before passing through narrow maritime chokepoints such as the Malacca Strait. Chinese factories, industries, and economic growth depend upon uninterrupted access to these sea lanes. Any disruption to these routes could have serious consequences for China's economy and national security. This dependency has long concerned Chinese strategists. It has given rise to what many analysts describe as China's Malacca dilemma. The fear that vital maritime lifelines could be threatened during periods of tension or conflict. As a result, China has spent years expanding its maritime footprint across the Indian Ocean region. Chinese investments in ports, infrastructure projects, and logistical facilities stretch across multiple countries. Beijing established its first overseas military base in Djibouti. Chinese naval task forces regularly conduct anti-piracy patrols near the Horn of Africa. Chinese submarines have appeared in the Indian Ocean with increasing frequency. Chinese intelligence-gathering vessels now operate throughout the region. These developments are not random. They reflect China's gradual transition from a regional navy focused on coastal defense to a blue water navy capable of operating across the globe. Beijing understands that great powers require maritime reach, and maritime reach requires access, logistics, and sustained presence. From China's perspective, the Indian Ocean is no longer a distant theater. It is becoming an increasingly important component of China's global strategy. However, China's ambitions encounter a challenge that cannot easily be overcome. That challenge is geography. Unlike China, India sits at the very center of the Indian Ocean. The Indian Peninsula extends deep into the ocean, projecting influence toward major maritime routes in every direction. India's western coastline overlooks the Arabian Sea. Its eastern coastline faces the Bay of Bengal. Together, they place India in a uniquely advantageous strategic position. Geography grants India something that every maritime power seeks but few possess: proximity. Indian naval forces operate close to home bases, repair facilities, logistics networks, and air support. Chinese naval forces operating in the Indian Ocean must function thousands of kilometers away from their primary bases on the Chinese mainland. History repeatedly demonstrates that distance matters in warfare. Fleets operating close to home enjoy significant advantages in maintenance, resupply, intelligence, and operational endurance. Fleets operating far from home must overcome logistical challenges that grow larger with every nautical mile. For India, geography acts as a force multiplier. But India's greatest maritime advantage may lie even further east. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands occupy one of the most strategically valuable locations in the world. Situated near the approaches to the Malacca Strait, these islands overlook one of the most important maritime chokepoints on the planet. Any vessel moving between the Pacific Ocean and the Indian Ocean must navigate routes close to this region. The islands provide India with an exceptional vantage point for surveillance, monitoring, and strategic awareness. No amount of shipbuilding can replicate such a geographic position. The Andaman and Nicobar Command effectively serves as India's forward maritime outpost, allowing New Delhi to observe and influence activity near one of China's most critical trade and energy corridors. This does not mean India can simply block Chinese shipping whenever it chooses. Maritime strategy is far more complex than that. However, it does mean that China must always account for India's geographic advantages when planning its operations in the Indian Ocean. This reality shapes the broader balance of power. Can India truly contain China? The answer depends on what we mean by containment. Containment does not necessarily require absolute control. It does not require India to defeat China across every maritime theater. Nor does it require India to match China ship for ship. Instead, containment means preventing China from establishing unquestioned dominance and ensuring that Chinese naval operations remain constrained by strategic risk. In this respect, India possesses several important advantages. The Indian Navy has invested heavily in maritime surveillance capabilities. Long-range patrol aircraft, naval reconnaissance assets, satellites, and coastal monitoring systems provide increasing awareness of activity throughout the region. India's submarine force contributes to sea denial operations that complicate adversary planning. Aircraft carriers extend maritime reach and provide flexible power projection. Missile systems strengthen India's ability to challenge hostile naval movements. Together, these capabilities create a strategic environment in which any external navy must operate cautiously. Yet India's strategy extends beyond military power alone. Partnerships have become a critical component of India's maritime approach. The rise of the Indo-Pacific concept has encouraged greater cooperation between India, the United States, Japan, Australia, and other like-minded nations. Naval exercises, intelligence sharing, maritime domain awareness initiatives, and defense cooperation all contribute to a broader network of regional stability. The Indian Ocean is no longer viewed solely as a regional theater. It has become part of a wider strategic landscape stretching from the eastern coast of Africa to the western Pacific. This broader alignment increases the complexity of China's strategic calculations. However, a realistic assessment also requires acknowledging India's limitations. China possesses enormous industrial capacity. Its shipyards can produce warships at a remarkable pace. Its defense budget significantly exceeds India's. Beijing continues to modernize its fleet, expand its logistical capabilities, and improve its ability to sustain long-distance operations. India faces challenges of its own. Shipbuilding timelines remain lengthy. Submarine numbers remain a concern. Budgetary constraints require difficult choices. Debates continue regarding the future composition of the fleet and the balance between aircraft carriers, submarines, and emerging technologies. Containment is therefore not guaranteed. It requires sustained investment, strategic clarity, and long-term commitment. Nevertheless, there is an important distinction that should not be overlooked. China's greatest strength is industrial power. India's greatest strength is strategic geography. And throughout history, geography has often proven to be the more enduring advantage. China can deploy ships into the Indian Ocean. It can establish access agreements. It can expand its naval presence and protect its maritime interests. But transforming that presence into genuine dominance is a far more difficult task. The Indian Ocean remains a region where India begins with advantages that no rival can easily duplicate. In the coming decades, the contest between India and China at sea will not be determined solely by the number of ships launched or the size of defense budgets. It will be determined by who better understands the relationship between geography, logistics, strategy, and power. China can enter the Indian Ocean, but dominating it is another matter entirely. And that reality may shape the future balance of power across Asia for decades to come. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure to like the video and subscribe to Strategic Vanguard. You can also follow us across platforms. We're on YouTube, Rumble, and Odyssey, so you never miss our strategic insights. Prefer audio? Tune in on Spotify and Amazon Music, and take Strategic Vanguard with you wherever you go. For deeper, structured analysis, visit strategicvanguard.com/analysis and stay updated with our latest news and views at strategicvanguard.com. Strategic thinking begins with informed perspectives. Stay with Strategic Vanguard.